Clinton campaign? Were there any Russians attempting to target the Hillary Clinton campaign? I find it very difficult to believe that the Russians only tried to reach out to the Trump campaign. And if they did the FBI debrief them on that? Because that would answer a lot of questions for us.
If they didn't do it for
Trump and they did it for Hillary,
then how is it possible the whole dossier issue that Clinton paid for, by the way, it was disseminated before the election to influence the American people? I'm sure there are people that probably read about hookers in the bed in Moscow. I'll be a little easier tonight. They probably said, I'm not voting for that guy. But those were all paid for Russian lies. If they cared about Russian interference, why didn't that come up? Or, John, Uranium One, where they, we all, you know, Sarah knows, I know, the informant. We've all spoken to the informant. The informant describing kickbacks, bribery, money laundering, extortion, Putin's thugs in America, and they still got approval, and the Clinton Foundation still got their money in terms of a kickback to the foundation.
I think there's growing evidence, Sean, that the Clinton political opposition research effort was an effort to make sure that Hillary Clinton's vulnerabilities on Moscow would be off limits in the election by putting Trump on the defensive. And from that, we put an entire criminal investigation in 2 years of our country with still no evidence of collusion. At this point, we have a few people pleading guilty to lying about unrelated events in that. It's a real travesty to have gone through that.
Taxi medallions and people not paying their taxes.
Now, I got a little bit of breaking news for you.
Get out of jail free cards, but yeah.
Yep. A little bit of breaking news.
Go into the Uranium One and the dossier issue. You get the last word.
Oh, okay. Well, Sean, let me tell you this. When it comes to Mueller, we know this for a fact, that William Campbell, and I talked to him today, I spoke with him, and he said, look, he was informed of everything about Rosatom, about the uranium deal. He was in charge of the FBI then. So we have to ask ourselves this. Where are we going from here? We have so much evidence on the other side. Is there going to be a special counsel investigating the other side? What we've seen in Hillary Clinton, what we've seen with our weaponization of our intelligence apparatus? When is that going to happen?
I gotta, all right, now, there's something percolating that probably will break Monday. Do either one, you're both smiling, do either one of you want to give the audience, well, a little heads up?
I'll give you some breaking news right now, Sean. Just 2 hours ago, federal prosecutors assigned to John Huber, the U.S. attorney investigating the Clintons, reached out to a whistleblower in the Clinton Foundation. The first time we've seen contact between a Clinton Foundation whistleblower and that particular federal office. That just happened tonight.
Are you talking about the one whose home was raided?
No, this is a different whistleblower that you might learn. You'll learn a lot more about on Monday, I bet you.
All right, we'll learn that on Monday. Sarah, last word. What is it? Give us a preview of Monday's coming attraction.
I think we've got a lot to look forward to on Monday, Sean, and I think that the American people are going to see that there was happening behind the scenes at the FBI as well as the Department of Justice, and Michael Horowitz have been doing a very deep dive into this, and there's going to be a lot of breaking news in the next month and the months to come. Amazing, the year of the boomerang. We were right all along. Continues. Thank you both. More reports on Monday. All right, when we come back, Robert Mueller's witch hunt. Is it sabotaging our foreign policy? Newt Gingrich will answer that question directly ahead on the special edition of Hannity, Trump versus the Resistance.
Live from America's News headquarters, I'm Trace Gallagher. A massive earthquake jolting Anchorage, Alaska. The 7.0 quake wrecked buildings, buckled roads, and sent panicked residents running for cover. It also triggered a brief tsunami warning and dozens of aftershocks, the largest registering 5.7. Authorities say those aftershocks could continue for at least another week, possibly longer. Thousands are now without power. So far, no word of fatalities or serious injuries. The governor has declared an emergency. A former Dallas police officer who fatally shot an unarmed man inside his apartment was indicted on a murder charge. Amber Geiger mistakenly shot her neighbor, Botham Jean, after confusing his apartment for her own. Geiger mistook Jean for a burglar. The September shooting sparked national outrage. Geiger was fired from her job. I'm Trace Gallagher. Now back to Hannity.
All right, welcome back to the special edition of Hannity. Trump versus the resistance. Now, as the Mueller witch hunt continues, there's still no evidence of any Trump-Russia collusion. So ask yourself, why was the Michael Cohen filing done on the eve of this high-stakes G20 summit? This is not the first time this has happened. Remember the Paul Manafort indictment, George Papadopoulos' guilty plea, both announced just days before the president left for a historic 12-day trip to Asia. And White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders, she said today that the probe may be hurting the U.S. ties with Moscow, all suggesting that the special counsel may be trying to derail the Trump presidency in more ways than one. Joining us now with reaction, author of the bestseller, Trump's America, The Truth About Our Nation's Great Comeback, Fox News contributor and former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich. You know, one of the things, you talk about the success of Trump in your book, but then you also have the warnings, what the president needs to be aware of. Obviously, I stand on my original premise. Mueller's out for blood. Mueller picked this team of Democratic donors, even Clinton's old lawyer at the foundation, Andrew Weissman and company, for a reason. He wants to hurt the president as badly as he can. That's why he's offering all these get-out-of-jail-free cards if you just say whatever we want you to say.
Look, I think we ought to quit talking about the Mueller investigation and start talking about the Mueller Trump destruction project. Because it's very clear that Mueller and his left-wing lawyers are methodically doing everything they can to destroy the president. And in effect, to create a non-justice department, because this is not justice, a non-justice department coup d'etat in which they undo the votes of the American people and they pile enough junk. And that's what all this stuff is. They pile enough junk around that they just gradually overwhelm President Trump. And I think if you start and you look at everything they've been doing, and you said, you know, from day one, this was never about Russian collusion. This was never about finding the truth. This was about a methodical effort to destroy President Trump by any means necessary. And you look at some of the things they're getting indictments on. I mean, again, somebody goes and lies to the Congress. That's stupid. They deserve to be indicted. I'm not in any way defending Cohen. But they were lying about stuff that wasn't a crime. It's the point that Andy McCarthy keeps making as a former Justice Department lawyer, that none of the underlying patterns were crimes. People are allowed to be in business. People are allowed to do deals. People are allowed to do lots of stuff. And yet what you get, of course, is the headline in the elite media that somehow this is another terrible blow to Trump. What it really is further proof that Mueller's interest is in destroying the Trump presidency. And your point is exactly right. They had no reason to release this as the president goes to an important meeting in Argentina with 19 other world leaders. I mean, this is sort of like undermining America for partisan reasons.
You've been in the minority in Congress, and you were the Speaker in Congress. It's a lot easier to be the Speaker. I'm just guessing. Although you take a lot more incoming. Let's be honest. You took your fair share. So we don't have an agenda, the Democrats in the House. All they're saying, endless investigation. Nancy Pelosi's first agenda item, she announced earlier today, release Donald Trump's taxes. Now, that's not going anywhere in the Senate. Good thing the president went out to campaign very hard to keep the Senate, because that's going to help him. But it's still the intention. I don't see an agenda to serve the American people.
Well, and remember, Sean, this is what people have to understand. There's a 1923 law which allows the chairman of the Ways and Means Committee to request the tax returns of any American. So I can imagine a circumstance where the new chairman, a liberal Democrat, will exercise his legal right. The Internal Revenue Service will turn over the Trump tax returns, which are supposedly secret, and the release of which would be a felony. And then by some magic method that all of us will be shocked at, they'll turn out on page 1 of the New York Times. So I would not, I mean, these people are playing for blood. This is more like the terror in the French Revolution than it is like traditional American politics. They will do anything, break any rules, and I think break any law if it will enable them to get Donald Trump.
Let's go to the border. You know, it was interesting during the campaign. Oh, they're just trying to gin up racial tensions. This isn't real. They're 1,000 miles away. Well, they're not 1,000 miles away anymore. And Border Patrol agents pelted with rocks, bottles, projectiles, but using the same tactics that Obama used. Interestingly, nobody cared then. Tear gas to disperse crowds that were trying to break down the wall and enter the country and charge into the country illegally. Pretty severe crisis in Mexico. Then you have 600 criminals identified by the DHS and Mexican officials that have infiltrated the caravan. Where do we go from here? How do you stop that from happening?
Well, first of all, every citizen should ask their Democratic congressman or senator, are you really comfortable with 600 identified criminals coming into the United States in just one particular wave? Remember, if they get to come in this time, the number of people who will be coming north in the next 6 months will be amazing, because people are down there watching to see what happens. And I think it's astonishing to me that Senator Schumer, Speaker Pelosi, nobody's held accountable when you get a report from the Department of Homeland Security that in this particular group there are 600 people who are convicted criminals. Now, I suspect the average American, if that was presented to them, which it won't be by the elite news, won't be on the New York Times page one, but that's an astonishing piece of data. So I think that the president simply has to come back home, keep driving the points. He's the one person who can break through the news blackout and get the truth to the American
strategically,
people. And
would it be a good or bad idea to either use the reconciliation process to get full funding of the wall, or for the president to say, I'll just shut down the government and just wait?
Well, I think the president's already indicated what he may do is shut the border and see how rapidly that causes a real pain level. I mean, the number of American businesses that will be knocking on doors in Congress within 2 days will be amazing.
All right, Mr. Speaker, thanks for being with us. All right, when we come back, busy news night. The Clintons back in the news for all the wrong reasons. This time, it's going to be real. We have a full report straight ahead.
Knows how long, generations certainly through the 20th century. So the system is meant to do this, and it's of course it's a mutant kind of system that protects the bad guys. We're in the process of changing that, and it's going to take more than 2 years or one term or 2 years. It's going to take at least a generation to move us out of this corrupt kind of framework. And of course, it's going to fight back. And when you've got the entire monster geared to fighting back, it takes somebody really strong, and it takes the American people. This is, we're the bulwark here. The legacy media has abandoned their job, and the American people are the ones now, through, thank goodness, the internet, new media, multiple modes of communication, cable television, that makes the difference. So we're going to be able to do it, but the communication framework is going to be different.
For example, Governor, so you have all these people in the Senate Judiciary. I believe, whatever the charge, they believed it all. But they didn't say a word about the charges, not 36 years ago, about Keith Ellison, emotional and physical abuse. They all love the Clintons. We know all the allegations against Bill. They didn't say a word about Avenatti. He wasn't going to give Brett Kavanaugh due process and presumption of innocence. So it's not the issue they care about. It's the politics they care about. Just like here. Russia collusion, but not if it's Hillary's dossier, or Uranium One giving 20% of America's uranium to the hostile regime of Vladimir Putin. Thought Russia was so bad that they would want to join us and really get to the bottom of it.
Well, this isn't about truth, justice, or the American way. This is about raw power and keeping it. And if you lose it, then get it back, even if you have to try to overturn the results of an election. And that's why it should be so very troubling. Sean, I don't think you or anybody else in America truly believes that Bill Clinton gave a speech that was worth $500,000 in Moscow, while his wife happened to be the Secretary of State. And then suddenly and amazingly, and coincidentally, it just happened that the Uranium One deal came through. FBI director was Bob Mueller. I don't think he's investigating that while he's got this incredible unit of Democrats that he's assembled to do investigation of Russia collusion. The real Russia collusion is seemingly going uninvestigated.
All right, but Governor,
and then you
here's
have
the bottom
Dean
line.
Cain. Yeah.
But we're like an island here, bringing up news and information with evidence, something they don't have against Donald Trump. And yet it penetrates, and it penetrates. And I bet anything Mueller is going to use a sledgehammer to try and bludgeon in his report Donald Trump.
Well, there's no doubt about that. But the one thing that has to happen is that the president has to appoint a permanent attorney general, not a temporary like Whitaker. Maybe it's Lindsey Graham. Maybe it's Trey Gowdy. I don't know. Maybe it's Sean Hannity, for heaven's sakes.
No,
but
that's a bad
he's got to
idea.
have somebody.
I wouldn't get one vote.
Yeah, you know what? It's probably a bad idea. They'll never confirm you. That's for sure.
You're
You would
right.
never make it through the Senate.
Tammy wouldn't even vote for me if she was on the
someone,
Senate.
Sean.
Look.
They got to have someone, Sean, who is going to be relentless, not in trying to be harsh to the Democrats, but trying to be fair to the truth
But let
and
me
get to
add,
it no matter who it bothers.
Let me add, because the person that is going to do the best job is going to be the person that the Democrats freak out about the most. This is why the Senate, as it exists now, the newbies coming in, even with Romney, we've got to make sure the president makes it clear to Mitch McConnell and every other senator in the Republican Party that this matters, that his next attorney general must be confirmed, that they cannot allow the Democrats to muck up the waters and change this framework. Everything is at stake because the person who's right for that office, and every appointee of the president, is going to upset people, specifically because they intend to clean house. And that's what's important here.
All right, guys, great analysis. We'll stay on it. We'll do their job. Eventually, hopefully, the truth comes out. When we come back, another example, abusive bias against conservatives. This time, social media giant Google will expose the search giant when we get back right here as we continue tonight. Trump versus the resistance on Hannity.